Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, it's time for Below Grade Level. Listener beware, you're in for a scare.
Welcome back to Below Grade Level, the show where we take the books that we loved as children, we read them as adults, and boy do we ruin them. So the last two episodes you've listened to, we have been reading Stay Out of the Basement, which is Goosebumps number 2 by R.L. Stine. And on this episode, we are going to be finishing Stay Out of the Basement. This will be chapters 16 to whatever the last chapter is. I never remember what the last chapter is, and I never feel like going in and figuring it out after the fact. So this is the last chunk of the book. With all these books, we sort of had the habit of reading a bit of them, each episode, and then kind of getting sick of them and just saying, fuck it, we got to finish this book. And then we would record like an entire episode where we're just finishing it because we just wanted to get on to the next one. And as you will hear, if you keep listening to the show, that never changes. We just get sick of every book by the time we get to the end of it. And I don't know if that's because we drag it out over such a long period of time. We were reading these, as part of an old podcast where we would only read basically 2 to 3 chapters at a time, sometimes only one chapter. So I don't know if it was like months, would go by. We're like, I'm sick of this book, or if they suck. We'll find out when we start reading new books. When we actually, basically, how Game of Thrones, the books had been written for a long time, and then they started making the TV show, and while the TV show was going, people who read the books were like, ooh, I know what's going to happen, because this has already, been around, and then there was this great moment where the two of them met up, and then there was this better moment for me as a person who never read any Game of Thrones, where the TV show surpassed the books, and suddenly you didn't know what was going to happen. That's what's going to happen with this show. One day, we're going to catch up to the last thing that we recorded that wasn't part of Below Grade Level, and it's going to be real fucking fun. So, with that being said, my guests on this episode are Bekah Eaton, Chris Zaleski, Katie Duerling, and Kelly Fuller. So, I think another one of these, I think the first part of this episode was also recorded outside. We used to kind of do that during the summer, and that was a lot of fun. So let's just find out how... Well, I remember how this ends, actually. The ending's pretty great. So you're going to want to listen to it and stick around. Enjoy the last third of us reading Stay Out of the Basement. Next episode is going to get real good. Next episode, we start reading R.L. Stine's Party Games. I'll do a better job introducing party games on the next episode, and that's a long one too. That's going to be more than 3 episodes because it's one of his teenager books, and so it's a little more dangerous, and it's a little more grown up, and it's a little longer. And I gotta say, I do remember it. It's a little more padded than some of these Goosebumps books, but we did still have a lot of fun reading it because if nothing else, we just make it fun for ourselves. Anyway, take it away, us.
Chapter 16. Margaret spent Saturday morning biking up in the Golden Hills with Diane. The sun burned through the morning
Her
smog.
lesbian friend?
Yeah.
That bitch.
And the skies turned blue. A strong breeze kept them from getting too hot.
Right
The
now.
narrow road was lined with red and yellow wildflowers, and Margaret felt as if she were traveling somewhere far, far away.
How pretty.
Spooky smell.
They had lunch at Diane's house. Tomato soup and avocado salad. Then
What?
wandered back to
That
Margaret's
sounds
house.
amazing.
So California.
Trying to figure out how to spend the rest of a beautiful afternoon. Dr. Brewer was just backing the station wagon down the drive as Margaret and Diane rode up on their bikes. He rolled down the window, a broad smile on his face. "Good news!" he shouted. "Your mom is on her way home. I'm going to the airport to get her." "Oh, that's great," Margaret exclaimed, so happy she could almost cry. Margaret and Diane waved and pedaled up the driveway. Which way are we going?
Yeah, this way.
Counterclockwise.
That's how we always go.
We don't go
it's so
counterclockwise.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do. I'm always drunk. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure
I've
the
done
last time
3
you were
burps.
like counterclockwise.
Yeah. Can we make a supercut of me saying counterclockwise?
Yes, absolutely. I'm
be those
so
3 times.
happy, Margaret thought. It'll be so good to have her back. Someone I can talk to. Someone who can explain ... about
The
Dad.
strange things happening to my body.
They looked through some old copies of Sexy and Pussy in Margaret's room. Sorry, it was sassy and people. Listening to tapes that Margaret had recently bought. Tapes. At a little past 3, Diane suddenly remembered that she had a makeup piano lesson that she was late for. She rushed out of the house in a panic, jumped on her bike, and yelled, "Say hi to your mom for me, because I've totally got a crush on her," and disappeared down the drive. Margaret stood behind the house looking out at the rolling hills, wondering what to do next and make the time pass before her mother got home. The strong, swirling breeze felt cool against her face. She decided to get a book and go sit down with it under the shady sassafras tree in the middle of the yard.
Sassafras.
Too bad she didn't have a bay window, am I right, girls?
Yeah.
She turned and pulled
Makes
open
everything better.
open the kitchen door, and Casey came running up. "Where are our kites?" he asked out of breath. By the way, Casey is Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Yeah. Kites? I don't know why, Margaret asked. "Hey!" She grabbed his shoulder to get his attention. "Mom's coming home. She should be here in about an hour or so." "Great," he cried. "Just enough time to fly some kites. It's so windy. Come on. Wanna fly 'em with me?" "Sure," Margaret said. "It would help me pass the time."
She thought hard, trying to remember where they put the kites. Are they in the garage? No.
Riveting.
Casey told her.
They're in the
Riveting,
basement.
R.L. Stein.
I know. They're in the basement. What? On those shelves. The string, too. He pushed past her into the house. "I'll jimmy the lock and go down and get them." "Hey, Casey, be careful down there," she called after him. He disappeared into the hallway. Margaret had second thoughts. She didn't want Casey down there by himself in the plant room. "Wait up," she called. "I'll come with you." They made their way down the stairs quickly into the hot, steamy air, into the bright lights. The plant seemed to bend towards them, to reach out as they walked by. Margaret tried to ignore them. Walking right behind Casey, she kept her eyes on the tall metal shelf straight ahead. The shelves were deep and filled with old, unwanted toys, games, and sports equipment in a I just plastic watched Toy tent. Story. That's Some really old sad. sleeping bags. This is a really bad sentence. Casey got there first and started rummaging around on the lower shelves. "I know they're here somewhere," he said. "Yeah, I remember storing them here," Margaret said, running her eyes over the top shelves. Casey, down on his knees, started pulling boxes off the bottom shelf.
Suddenly, he stopped. Whoa, Margaret. Huh? She took a step back. What is it? Look at this, Casey said softly. He pulled something out from behind the shelves, then stood up with it bundled in his hands. Margaret saw that he was holding a pair of black shoes, a pair of blue trousers.
What?
It's that guy.
Blue suit trousers?
Mr. Martinez?
Yes, Mr. Martinez.
His face suddenly pale, his features drawn. Casey let the shoes drop to the floor. He unfurled the trousers and held them up in front of him. Yeah, right? Ew. Hey, look into the back pocket, Margaret said, pointing. Casey reached into the back pocket and pulled out a black leather wallet. I don't believe this, Margaret said. Casey's hands trembled as he pulled the... Am I reading porn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Casey's hands trembled as he opened the wallet and searched inside. He pulled out a green American Express card and read the name on it.
Green one.
Mr.
It
Martinez.
belongs to Mr. Martinez,
Mr.
he
Martinez!
said, swallowing hard.
Gulp.
He raised his eyes to Margaret. This is Mr. Martinez's stuff. All right.
Yay.
Dad lied, Casey said, staring in horror at the wallet in his hands. Mr. Martinez might leave without his jacket, but he wouldn't leave without his pants and shoes.
Might.
He might. I don't know what
What was
they're
he
into.
doing?
What happened
Well,
to
their
him?
mom is gone. So.
Margaret asked, feeling sick. Casey slammed the wallet shut. He shook his head sadly, but didn't reply. He's so wise. In the center of the room, a plant seemed to groan, the sound startling the two kids.
I'm a sucker for farts. I'm so sorry.
Well, then you would love our
The
podcast.
plants are fart sounds. Dad lied, Casey repeated, staring down at the pants and the shoes on the floor. Dad lied to us. What are we gonna do? Margaret cried, panic and desperation in her voice. We've got to tell someone what's happening here. But who? Clearly not the police.
Yeah.
Nope. Why
who
would
do
you
we
call
tell?
the police?
Stand here
Don't
and
call
talk about who to
911.
tell.
Ghostbusters?
Yeah. The plant groaned again. Tendrils snaked along the dirt. Leaves clapped against each other softly, wetly. And then the banging began again in the supply closet next to the shelves.
I'm sorry, I love farts so much.
It's okay, Anna Marie loved fart so much she broke the whoopee cushion.
Yeah, she did that.
Oh, what?
It cost 270
that?
tickets.
Anna Marie,
bite it off?
the weirdest thing that Anna Marie did was not that she broke the whoopee cushion, is that she took a straw and stuck it in there and then thought the straw would make it sound
No.
more farty.
That's not how science works.
That's not how it works.
I think it was a good try.
I understand.
how it works, though.
She wanted to save the fart. Preserve
All right.
it.
Margaret
to set
stared
it
at
free.
Casey. That thumping. What is it? They both listened to the insistent banging sounds. A low moan issued from the closet, followed by a higher pitched one, both mournful. Both mournful. Both very human sounding.
That was human sounding.
I think
have to
someone's
talk
in
about-
there, Margaret exclaimed. Maybe it's Mr. Martinez, Casey suggested, still gripping the wallet tightly in his hand. Thud, thud, thud. Do you think we should open the closet? Casey asked timidly. A plant groaned as if answering. Yes, I think we should, Margaret replied, suddenly cold all over. If it's Mr. Martinez in there, we've got to let him out.
Yeah, definitely open the closet to the dead body instead of calling the fucking police.
Casey
That's
set the
logic
wallet
for
down
it.
on the shelf. Then they moved quickly to the supply closet. Across from them, the plants seemed to shift and move as the two kids did. They heard breathing sounds. Another groan. Scurrying noises. Leaves bristled on their stalks. Tendrils drooped and slid.
So airy.
Hey, look, Casey cried. I see, Margaret said. The closet door wasn't just locked. A 2x4 had been nailed over it. Thud, thud. Thud, thud, thud.
It's sad and human sounding.
He's been alone for so long.
We're in there.
Yep.
There's someone in there. I know it, Margaret cried. I'll get the hammer, Casey said. Keeping close to the wall and as far away from the plants as he could, he edged his way towards the work table. A few seconds later, he returned with the claw hammer. Thud, thud. Working together, they pried the 2x4 off the door. It clattered noisily to the floor. The banging from inside the supply closet grew louder and more insistent. Now,
So wet.
now what do we do about the lock? Margaret asked, staring at it. Casey scratched his head. Scratch, scratch, scratch. They both had perspiration dripping down their faces. The steamy, hot air made it hard to catch their breaths. Oh. I don't know how to
breathe, you
unlock
guys.
it. Casey said stumped. What if we tried to pry the door off the way we pulled it off by the 2? What if we tried to pull the door off the way we pulled off the 2x4? Good writing. Margaret asked.
I'm gonna
Thud,
tweet R.L.
thud,
Stine
thud.
who said that.
Casey shrugged. I don't know. Let's try. All right. Working the claw of the hammer into the narrow crack, they tried prying the door on the side of the lock. When it wouldn't budge, they moved to the hinged side and tried it there.
It's not moving, Casey said, mopping his forehead with his arm.
I'm the only
Keep
one not
trying,
doing
Margaret said.
Not
Sorry.
Here, let's both push it. Digging the claw in just above the lower hinge, they both pushed the handle of the hammer with all their strength. It moved a little, Margaret said, breathing hard. They kept at it. The wet wood began to crack. They both pushed against the hammer, wedging the claw into the crack. Finally, with a loud ripping sound, they managed to pull the door off. Huh? Casey dropped the hammer. They both squinted into the dark closet and screamed in horror when they saw what was inside.
That was the end of the chapter?
Yeah.
What?
They're short.
I know.
Yeah, it was really short. I want to keep going.
That's cool. We'll do.
Don't help your parents or whatever
Chris,
bullshit.
stay here.
Yeah.
Cut the lawn.
Peer pressure.
What our lawn?
I gotta go kill plants.
What's that we do on the weekend?
But what's gonna happen to Margaret and Casey?
I'll have to listen.
How many chapters are there?
This is 18.
We're almost done. How many are there?
There's like 20.
There's
We'll probably
one.
finish it next
Okay,
episode,
yeah,
right?
remember
Yeah.
the last time we were like, let's just finish it,
Yeah.
and it was like an hour
It was
of
an hour and
reading.
a half.
21. There are 21 chapters.
Yeah, yeah.
We're on 18.
We'll do one more and then we'll call it quits, okay?
All right.
All right.
Okay. Look! Margaret cried, her heart thudding. She suddenly felt dizzy. She gripped the side of the closet to steady herself. Don't believe this.
Oh wait, I wasn't listening. Did they open that door?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
screamed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
That's why we
screamed.
screamed.
They screamed in horror when they saw what was
I
inside.
was not listening. I'm sorry.
You screamed though.
Yeah.
I heard everyone screaming.
We've been
I wanted
drinking.
to join in.
Friendship!
Just like that. You weren't paying attention, but everyone was
adventure.
screaming. You're like,
So she screamed too.
She's a part of a team. Okay.
oh god. Okay.
Stop it.
Don't believe this, Casey said quietly,
You sound like cats.
his
throwing
voice
up.
trembling as he stared into the long, narrow supply closet. They both gaped
yeah.
at the weird plants that filled the closet. I swear I'm reading porn.
I know.
Porn. It's porn.
I don't know why he did
Were they
it right
plants?
instead.
Under the dim ceiling bulb, they bent and writhed, groaning, breathing, sighing.
Oh my
We
god!
just put a Goosebumps cover on the outside of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
If this is
Sexy.
what that movie was, I would see it.
Right? God.
You would or wouldn't?
With
No,
the farts
would.
and everything?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care about the guy in an office with whips. It's
Yeah,
boring.
I've seen Secretary.
Yeah.
Right? God, it's been done. Better. Okay. Branches shook. Leaves shimmered and moved. Tall plants leaned forward as if reaching out to Margaret and Casey. Look at that one, Casey cried, taking a step back, stumbling onto Margaret. It has an arm. Ow! Margaret followed Casey's stare. Casey was right. The tall, leafy plant appeared to have a green, human arm descending from its stalk.
Oh no.
Oh no!
Ew. Margaret's eyes darted around the closet. To her horror, she realized that several plants seemed to have human features. Green arms, a yellow hand with 3 fingers poking from it,
Ew.
2 stumpy legs where the stem should be.
Who's been looking at me when I wake up in the morning?
These books get surprisingly violent towards the end.
At the
Yeah.
very end.
At the very
end, it's just like blood and skull smashing.
She and her brother both cried out when they saw the plant with the face.
Ew.
Oh,
Bless
bless
you.
you. Inside. Oh. Okay. Inside a cluster of broad leaves, there appeared to grow a round green tomato. But the tomato had a human-shaped nose and an open mouth,
What?
which it repeatedly uttered the most mournful sighs and groans.
I wish you guys could see Chris's face right now.
He looks very mournful.
He's really
And
emoting.
groany.
Very groany and mournful.
So sad.
That's
We
what I
saw
imagined.
the air. Another plant, a short plant with clusters of broad oval leaves, had 2 green, nearly human faces partly hidden by the leaves, both wailing through open mouths. Let's get out of here, Casey cried, grabbing Margaret's hand in fear and tugging her away. This is gross! The plants moaned inside.
Gross.
The plants moaned inside.
Oh, the plants went inside?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Don't say okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Green
Shut the
finger.
fuck up.
Green fingerless hands reached out to Margaret and Casey. A yellow, sick-looking plant near the wall made choking sounds.
Choking.
See? You wasted all the air, and now this is what happens. Choking sounds.
Choking sounds?
Choking sounds. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
lost
good, right?
the place. Okay.
Yeah.
A tall flowering plant staggered toward them, thin tendril-like arms outstretched. Wait! Margaret cried, pulling her hand out of Casey's. Ew, they were holding hands? Jeez.
Oh my god.
Oh my
I bet
God.
it's their mom.
Oh no!
Because she's been gone.
She spotted something on the closet floor behind the moaning, shifting plants. Casey, what's that? She asked, pointing. Wait, I want to see if you're right. I'm reading ahead.
You're gonna
Time's
spoil
up.
it.
I know. Spotlight. Sorry, you're over here.
All right.
Let's
She
take too long.
struggled to focus her eyes in the dim light of the closet. On the floor behind the on the
Take
floor
two.
behind the plants, near
Blind.
the shelves on the back wall, were 2 human feet. Margaret
Ugh,
stepped
feet
cautiously
gross.
into the closet. The feet she saw were attached to legs.
Observant.
Really?
She's a
Legs?
straight A student.
Not legs.
OMG.
Margaret, let's go. Casey pleaded. No, look, there's someone back there, Margaret said, staring hard. Huh? A person, not a plant, Margaret said. I think it just sounds like the MC.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
She took another step. A soft green arm brushed against her side. Margaret, what are you doing? Casey asked, his voice high and frightened. I have to see who it is, Margaret said. She took a deep breath and held it. Then, ignoring the moans, the sighs, the green arms reaching out to her, the hideous green tomato faces, she plunged through the plants to the back of the closet. How big is this closet?
It's really huge.
The biggest supply closet I've ever
Seriously,
heard of.
no house is built like that.
Dad! She cried. Her father was lying on the floor, his
What?
hands and feet tied tightly with plant tendrils, his mouth gagged by a wide strip of elastic tape.
Oh my god, it's not their dad!
Margaret. Casey was beside her. He lowered his eyes to the floor. Oh no. That is not all right. Their father stared up at them, pleading with his eyes.
What? I didn't see that coming. He cried, struggling to talk through the gag. Margaret dived to the floor and started to untie him. No, stop, Casey cried, pulling her back to the shoulders. By the shoulders. Casey, let go of me! What's wrong with you? Margaret cried angrily. It's Dad! It can't be Dad, Casey said, still holding her by the shoulders. Dad is at the airport, remember?
Dumb little dickhead.
Behind them, the plants seemed to be moaning in unison, a terrifying chorus. A tall plant fell over and rolled toward the open closet door. Their father continued to plead, struggling at the tendrils that imprisoned him. I've got to untie him, Margaret told her brother. Let go of me. Sorry. Someone's, okay.
It's all of our phones.
Yeah, everyone's phone.
Sorry.
Stop. Pay attention. No, Casey insisted. Margaret, look at his head. Margaret turned her eyes to her father's head. He was bareheaded, no Dodgers cap. He had tufts of green leaves growing where his hair should be. We've already seen that, Margaret snapped. It's a side effect, remember? She reached down to pull at her father's ropes. No, don't, Casey insisted. What the fuck is going on?
I don't even know.
Okay, Margaret said. I'll just pull that tape off his mouth. I won't untie him. She reached down and tugged at the elastic tape until she managed to get it off. Kids, I'm so glad to see. Oh, Dr. Brewer. What does he sound like? Oh, okay, so I was doing it. Kids, I'm so glad to see you. Dr. Brewer said, quick, untie me. How did you get down here? Casey demanded, standing above him, hands on his hips, staring down at him suspiciously. We saw you leave for the airport. That wasn't me! What? I'm so bad at this. Dr. Brewer said, I've been locked in here for days!
Oh my god.
What?
I'm shocked at the plot.
I know.
I did not see this
No,
coming.
I am
OMG.
genuinely
OMG.
surprised.
I'm really surprised.
Huh?
You got us, alright.
You got us.
said?
You got us.
Full-grown adults.
Stop bending the book. That hurts me.
Sorry.
Every time you bend it,
what
Chris
does
is like,
his father
"Crack."
sound like?
Was what?
What does their father sound like?
Like we're just
We're
doing
just
it.
doing it.
Dr. Brewer's the father. Oh, please! There's no time to explain. Her father said urgently, raising his leaf-covered head to look towards the closet doorway. Just untie me! Quick! The father we've been living with? He's a plant? Margaret cried, swallowing hard.
What?
Gulp.
Yeah.
What?
Yes, please untie me! Margaret reached for the tendrils. No, Casey insisted. How
Casey,
do we?
you're an
Casey,
idiot.
you're fucking stupid.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, you're the
God
worst.
damn.
How do we know you're not telling the truth? Or how do we know you are telling the truth? I will explain everything, I promise.
You've been saying it the whole book.
God damn. Hurry! Our lives are at stake! Mr. Martinez is in here too! Startled, Margaret turned her eyes to the far wall. Sure enough, Mr. Martinez also lay on the floor, bound and gagged. Let me out, please, her father cried. Behind them, the plants moaned and cried. Margaret couldn't stand it anymore. I'm untying him, she told Casey, and bent down to start grappling with the tendrils. Her father sighed gratefully.
That sounds like gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratifart. Wait. Casey bent down and reluctantly began working at the tendrils too.
Ew.
Finally, right, they had loosened them enough so that their father could slip out. He climbed to his feet slowly, stretching his arms, moving his legs, bending his knees. Man, that feels good, he says, giving Margaret and Casey a grim smile. Dad, should we untie Mr. Martinez? Margaret asked. But without warning, Dr. Brewer pushed past the two kids and made his way out of the closet. Dad! Whoa. Whoa. Where are you going? Margaret called. You said you'd explain everything, Casey insisted. He and his sister ran through the moaning plants. It's kind of wet.
That's awful.
wet.
Guys, that's
That's what it
awful.
sounds like when Mark farts.
That's awful.
That's so wet.
Oh,
Following their father. I will. Breathing hard, Dr. Brewer strode quickly to the woodpile against the far wall.
All right, we're almost done. Margaret and Casey both gasped as he picked up an axe. He spun around to face them.
What if he just killed them and that was the end of the book?
Why don't you wait and see? He spun around to face them, holding the thick axe handle with both hands.
Is that a dick?
Two of them.
Yeah.
Hey.
Allegory. Face frozen with determination, he started toward them.
Oh, God.
Dad, what are you doing?
Gross.
Margaret cried.
Put that down.
End of chapter.
Done.
Chapter 19. Get ready with that.
All right.
Only do it for plant noises.
Okay.
We gotta.
I'm just trying to be ready.
I know, but like we can't do it willy nilly.
Well, it's hard.
I know, but it reduces the laughter.
Like using a whoopee cushion. Like I think it's the closest I'll ever come to using heroin. So it's just
It's really hard to stop. Swinging the axe onto it. There's an axe? Sorry. Swinging the axe onto his shoulder, Dr. Brewer advanced on Margaret and Casey. He groaned from the effort of raising the heavy tool.
oh.
I said groaned.
He groaned, not
Yeah,
plant.
well,
You
I
just
know.
gave me shit for like.
Kind of planty, isn't
He's
he?
planty.
All right then. Sorry, like that one slipped.
Sorry about that one. I'm gonna do it again. He groaned from the effort of raising the heavy tool. His face reddening, his eyes wide, excited. Dad, please, Margaret cried, gripping Casey's shoulder, backing up toward the jungle of plants in the center of the room. What are you doing? He's not our real father, Casey cried. I told you, we shouldn't untie him. He is our real father, Margaret insisted. I know he is. She turned her eyes to her father, looking for an answer, but he stared back at them, his face filled with confusion and lust and menace.
Lust?
The axe in his hands gleaming under the bright ceiling lights. Dad, answer us, Margaret demanded. Answer us! But before Dr. Brewer could reply, they heard loud, rapid footsteps clumping down the basement steps.
All four of them turned to the doorway of the plant room to see an alarmed-looking Dr. Brewer enter.
Uh-oh.
He grabbed the bill of his Dodgers cap as he strode angrily toward the two kids. "What are you two doing down here?" he cried. "You promised me. Here's your mother. Don't you want to?"
Oh, no.
Mrs. Brewer appeared at his side. She started to call it a greeting, but stopped, freezing in horror when she saw the confusing scene. "No!" she screamed, seeing the other Dr. Brewer.
What?
The capless Dr. Brewer, holding an axe in front of him with both hands. "No!"
How is that your reaction? Is to yell no?
Her face filled with horror. She turned to the Dr. Brewer that had just brought her home. He glared accusingly at Margaret and Casey. "What have you done? You let him escape." "He's our dad," Margaret said in a tiny little voice she barely recognized. "I'm your dad," the Dr. Brewer at the doorway bellowed. "Not him. He's not your dad. He's not even human. He's a plant." Margaret and Casey both gasped and drew back in terror.
Which one?
"You're the plant," the bareheaded Dr. Brewer accused, raising the axe.
Oh, no.
"He's dangerous," the other Dr. Brewer exclaimed. "How could you have let him out?" Caught in the middle, Casey and Margaret stared from one father to the other. Who was their real father?
It's the classic switcheroo.
It's the Kansas City Shuffle. That's not your father, Dr. Brewer with the Dodgers cap cried again, moving into the room. "He's a copy, a plant copy, one of my experiments that went wrong. I locked him in the supply closet because he's dangerous." "You're the copy," the other Dr. Brewer accused and raised the axe again. Margaret and Casey stood motionless, exchanging terrified glances. "Kids, what have you done?" Mrs. Brewer cried, her hands pressed against her cheeks, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What have we done?" Margaret asked her brother in a low voice. Staring wide-eyed from one man to the other, Casey seemed too frightened to reply. I don't know what to do." Casey managed to whisper. "What can we do?" Margaret wondered silently, realizing that her entire body was trembling. My babies.
He has to be destroyed! The axe-wielding Dr. Brewer shouted, staring at his look-alike across the room. Beside them, the plants quivered and shook, sighing loudly. Tendrils slithered across the dirt.
Every sigh for Bekah when we do that is just the best. It's just like every sigh is one sigh closer to a divorce.
By the time we finish book 40, I'm single. Leaves shimmered and whispered. "Put down the axe! You're not fooling anyone!" the other Dr. Brewer said. "You have to be destroyed!" Dr. Brewer with the cap repeated, his eyes wild, his face scarlet. Moving closer, the axe gleamed as if electrified under the white light. Dad would never act like this, Margaret realized. Casey and I were idiots. We let him out of the closet. He's gay. And now he's gonna kill our real dad and mom. And then
people can't be dads.
Us! What can I do? She wondered, trying to think clearly, even though her mind was whirring wildly out of control. What can I do? Uttering a desperate cry of protest, Margaret leapt forward and grabbed the axe from the imposter's hand. He gaped in surprise, and she steadied her grip on the handle. It was heavier than she'd imagined. "Get back!" she screamed. "Get back now!" Margaret, wait! Her mother cried, still too frightened to move from the doorway.
Where? What? Where?
I thought you turned
Still
the
too
page.
frightened to move from the where?
Doorway.
I don't see the word doorway.
You turned the page.
Yeah, you turned the page and then pointed at the wrong page.
Oh, I did.
Jesus!
You fucking idiot.
Amateur.
I'm sorry.
The capless Dr. Brewer reached for the axe. "Give it back to me. You don't know what you're doing," he pleaded and made a wild grab for it. Margaret pulled back and swung the axe.
Whoa.
Stay back, everyone.
Jesus.
Stay back.
Bitch is crazy.
Thank goodness, Dr. Brewer with the Dodger's cap exclaimed. We've got to get him back in the closet. He's very dangerous. He stepped up to Margaret. Give me the axe. Margaret hesitated. Give me the axe, he insisted. Same emphasis on the same word. Margaret turned to her mother. What should I do? Mrs. Brewer shrugged helplessly. I don't know.
I'm just a woman.
I don't know. Princess, don't do it, the capless Dr. Brewer said softly, staring into
shit.
Margaret's eyes.
I bet, like, Princess...
He called me Princess,
Yeah,
Margaret realized.
yeah.
The other one never had.
Uh-oh.
Does this mean that the real dad in the closet is the dad in my closet is the real dad?
No wonder they
real
had so much
dad
trouble.
closet? Margaret, give me
Closeted.
the axe. The one in the cap made a grab for it. Margaret backed away and swung the axe again.
Jesus.
Get back, both of you! Stay back! She warned. I'm warning you, Dr. Brewer, in the cap said. Now you're over here.
Becca, when you do that voice, you put your hand on your hip. Shut up.
Stay back!
This is confusing.
He's
Sorry.
dangerous. Listen to me, Margaret. Get back, she repeated, desperately trying to decide what to do. Which one is my real dad? Which one? Which one? Which one? It was written 3 times.
Seriously? You
Yep.
should have gone for like 5.
3's just amateur hour. Her eyes darting back and forth from one to the other. She saw that each of them had a bandage around his right hand, and it gave her an idea. Casey, there's a knife on the wall over there, she said, still holding the axe
God,
poised.
she's gonna stab her dad!
Jesus Christ!
Get it for me, fast! Casey obediently hurried to the wall. It took him a short while to find the knife among all the tools hanging there.
What an
He
idiot.
reached up on tiptoes.
And all the grown-ups just stood there
Yeah.
watching the children.
The 3
Well,
people
she
who
has
can
an axe.
They can overpower her.
He reached up on tiptoes to pull it down, then hurried back to Margaret with
And then
it.
it fell on him and he died in the end.
Margaret lowered the axe and took the long-bladed knife from him. Margaret, give me the axe, the man in the Dodger's cap insisted impatiently. Margaret, what are you doing? The man from the supply closet asked, suddenly looking frightened. I have an idea, Margaret said hesitantly. She took a deep breath. Then she stepped over to the man from the supply closet and pushed the knife blade into his arm.
Oh my god, why is she cutting the one she thinks is her dad?
Jesus Christ.
Chapter
That's
22.
dark.
You bitch. He cried as the blade cut through his skin. Margaret pulled the knife back, having made a tiny puncture hole. Red blood trickled from the hole.
bitch.
Red blood. He's our real dad, she told Casey, sighing with relief.
Why didn't you stab the other one?
I was too caught up in listening to it.
He's our real dad, sighing with relief. Here, Dad, she handed him the axe. Margaret, you're wrong! The man in the baseball cap cried in alarm. He's tricked you! He's tricked you! The capless Dr. Brewer moved quickly. He picked up the axe, took 3 steps forward, pulled the axe back, and swung with all of his might. The Dr. Brewer in the cap opened his mouth wide and uttered a hushed cry of alarm. The cry was choked off as the axe cut easily through his body, slicing him in 2. A thick green liquid oozed from the wound, and as the man fell, his mouth locking open in disbelief and horror, Margaret could see that his body was actually a stem. He had no bones. No human organs.
Ew.
Shit's fucked up.
The body thudded to the floor. Green liquid puddled around it.
Ew.
Princess, we're okay, Dr. Brewer cried, flinging the axe aside. You guessed right! It wasn't a guess, Margaret said, sinking into
But
his
you stabbed
arms.
me, we're gonna have to put
It
you
wasn't
out.
a guess.
You're
I
grounded.
knew, but I stabbed you anyway, real father. I remember the
issues I'm working through right now. Puberty and such.
I've been terrified of you for days. my back.
I remembered the green blood. I saw it. Late at night, one of you was in the bathroom, bleeding green blood. I knew my real dad would have red blood.
Good. You can tell colors.
Yep.
Yes, smarty.
We're okay.
If she was colorblind, this whole story would have just fallen apart.
Oh god, yeah, whatever. Mom was like, but Margaret, no.
We're okay, Mrs. Brewer cried, rushing into her husband's arms. We're okay. We're all okay.
Ah!
She only just got there. She doesn't
She
even
just
know
got
what's
there,
going on.
saw 2 husbands, and the first thing she did was, no!
It's like when he was writing it, he was like, what do I do with the mother? I got nothing.
don't
She's just
care.
gonna go visit
No.
her sister.
For the whole book.
Okay, wait. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is good. All 4 of them rushed together in an emotional family hug.
Ew.
One more thing we have to do, their father said, his arms around the 2 kids. Let's get Mr. Martinez out of the closet. By dinner time, things had almost returned to normal. They had finally managed to welcome their mother home and tried to explain to her all that had happened in her absence. Mr. Martinez had been rescued from the supply closet. Not too much worse for the wear. What, was he kidnapped for like a week?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like naked.
Turning into a plant?
Well, might as well sit down and eat dinner now.
But he looks fine.
It's a good thing my clothes are still here.
He and Dr. Brewer
Gracias.
had a long discussion about what had happened and about Dr. Brewer's work. That's the word had 3 times in the same sentence. He expressed total bewilderment as to what Dr. Brewer had accomplished, but he knew enough to realize that it was historic. Left
Sorry.
page.
Okay, hold on. Perhaps you need the structured environment that the lab on campus offers. I'll talk to the board members about getting you back on staff.
Yeah,
getting
you
him
know
a
what's
job.
a good idea is to give his job back to the guy who just created a plant monster.
Martinez
Kidnapped
said.
him for a week.
Yeah.
It was his
I
way.
won't press
Hold on,
charges.
no. This is even
I
more
will
dumb.
reward you.
So he just said that, then it said Martinez said, and then it says, it was his way of inviting their father back to work. That is just War and Peace type shit right
His
there.
way of inviting them back to work
Was with an invitation.
was with an invitation to work again.
After Mr. Martinez was driven home, Dr. Brewer disappeared into the basement for about an hour. He returned grim-faced and exhausted. I destroyed most of the plants, he explained, sinking into an armchair. I had to. They were suffering. Later, I'll destroy the rest.
Oh, God.
Fuck the ones that are still suffering.
Yeah, God. They just watched all their friends die.
Every single plant? Mrs. Brewer asked. Well, there are a few normal ones that I could plant out back in the garden, he replied.
Yeah, that's a
He
great
shook
idea.
his head sadly. Only a few. At dinner, he finally had the strength to explain to Margaret, Casey, and Mrs. Brewer what had happened down in the basement. I was working on a super plant, he said, trying to electronically make a new plant using DNA elements from other plants.
This is some Michael Crichton shit right here.
Then I accidentally cut my hand on a slide. I didn't realize it, but some of my blood got mixed in with the plant molecules I was using. When I turned on the machine, my molecules got mixed in with plant molecules.
Not your molecules.
And I ended up with something that was part human, part plant.
Oh yes, it was the fly.
And
I
all
forgot we said it was the fly. That's gross, Casey exclaimed, dropping a forkful of mashed potatoes. High-pitched mashed potatoes.
doing it to make me mad.
Well, I'm a scientist, Dr. Brewer replied, so I didn't think it was gross. I thought it was pretty exciting. I mean, here I was, inventing an entirely new kind of creature. Those plants with faces, Margaret started. Her father nodded. Yes, those were the things I made by inserting human materials into plant materials. Plantimals. I kept putting them in the supply closet. I got carried away. I didn't know how far I could go.
So
How
he's a-
human I could make the plants.
Human plant hybrid
When is he
hoarder.
going to explain how it was the fake dad that took over for a while and now it's the real dad? Or is it like the twist going to
Maybe
be
he's
it's the fake
building
dad?
up.
I could see
I
that
hope
my
so.
creations were unhappy and suffering, but I couldn't stop. It was too exciting. He took a long drink of water from
Even
his
if
glass.
this is the real dad, he kind of sounds like an asshole.
He still sounds like a
So he
crazy
is a
mad
mad
scientist.
scientist,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me any of this, Mrs. Brewer said, shaking her head. I couldn't, he said. I couldn't tell anyone. I was too involved. Then one day, I went too far. I created a plant that was exact copy of me in almost every way. He looked like me. He sounded like me. And he had my brain. My mind. But he still acted like a plant in some ways. Oh, wait, Margaret said. But he still acted like a plant in some ways, Margaret said. He ate plant food, and he wasn't perfect, Dr. Brewer said, leaning forward over the dinner table, talking in a low, serious voice. He had flaws, but he was strong enough and smart enough to overpower me, to lock me in the closet, to take my place.
And to continue my experiments. And when Martinez arrived unexpectedly...
It's flawless. Transition.
Yeah. I can't do that voice. He locked Martinez in the closet, too, so that his secret would be safe. The secret that you created him?
All this talk about closets and secrets and secret dads.
Was the head full of leaves one of the flaws? Casey asked. Dr. Brewer nodded. Yes, he was almost a perfect clone of me, almost a perfect human, but not quite. But Dad, Margaret said, pointing, you have leaves on your head, too. He reached up and pulled one off. I know, he said, making a disgusted face. That's really gross, huh? Everyone agreed.
You're disgusting, Dad.
Well, when I cut my hand, some of the plant materials mixed in with my blood got into my system.
Nope.
He explained.
Nope.
And then I turned on the machine. The machine created a strong chemical reaction between the plant materials and my blood. Then my hair fell out overnight.
Oh my God.
And the leaves immediately started to sprout. Don't worry, guys. The leaves are falling out already. I think my hair will grow back. Margaret and Casey cheered.
Yay!
Yay, your hair!
All right.
I guess things will return to normal around here, Mrs. Brewer said, smiling
sure
at
they
her
will.
husband. Better than normal, he said, smiling back. If Mr. Martinez convinces the board to give me my job back, I'll clear out the basement and turn it into the best game room you ever saw!
Oh, yeah! Hoot woo!
All right. Margaret and Casey cheered again. All right. We're all alive and safe, Dr. Brewer said, hugging both kids at once. Thanks to you two. It was the happiest dinner Margaret could remember. After they had cleaned up, they all went out for ice cream.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
nearly 10 o'clock when they returned. That's so late.
Jesus Christ.
Dr. Brewer headed for the basement. Hey, where are you going? His wife called suspiciously. I'm just going down to deal with the rest of the plants, Dr. Brewer assured her. I want to make sure that everything is gone, that this horrible chapter in our lives is over. By the end of the week, most of the plants had been destroyed. A giant pile of leaves, roots, and stalks were burned in a bonfire that lasted for hours.
Good Lord.
A few tiny plants had been transplanted outside.
With,
All of
like,
the
their
equipment-
faces
Yeah,
and,
were
like,
they
their
screaming?
human parts and their arms.
Kill me now, I'm an affront to God!
Like, let's light this on fire.
I belong dead! All of the equipment had been dismantled and trucked to the university. On Saturday, all four brewers went to select a pool table for the new basement rec room. On Sunday,
This one. No, this one. This is the best pool table.
This one has a plant theme.
This.
On
pool
Sunday,
table!
on Sunday, Margaret found herself standing in back by the garden, staring up at the golden hills.
What?
Where the fuck did these hills come from? It's so peaceful
Ah, they're
now,
on
she
Mars.
thought
That's
happily.
the twist. Sorry.
So peaceful here, and so beautiful.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit.
I bet everything stays great.
The smile faded from her face when she heard the whisper at her feet. Margaret. She looked down to see a small yellow flower nudging her ankle. Margaret. The flower whispered. Help me. Please, help me. I'm your father. Really? I'm your real father! The air.
I know. It's way more gross.
No.
No. Do it better.
Do it right.
Ba 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 ba.
Is that the end of the book?
Ba-da-da-da.
Oh no!
What's the next one
That's
called?
the end
guess
of
they
R.L. Stine's Stay Out of the Basement. Goosebumps number 2. Join us next time.
For our most requested title.
Monster Blood. Really? So that was
gang, what did we learn
from
from this adventure?
don't
go in the
recreate
basement.
the fly
Yeah.
with plants, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plants bleed red and green blood.
Oh shit.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Seems kinda
R.L.
flawed.
Stein, he writes terrible books. He's not a
Right?
botanist.
Kind of flawed.
Yeah. Better than the last one.
Way better than the last one. See, we're not mean, R.L. Stein. We
Well,
liked
he,
this
he
one.
seems to be getting better with
A
every
lot
single
better.
one.
I bet.
Also, I bet my original theory for this,
Mm-hmm.
my theory of what the original version was, is that it was a single parent, right? It was just a dad and his kids because they didn't have a mom anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the publisher flat out said, you're not allowed to write a book with a broken home in it. So he shoehorned in the mom.
The mom.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it,
she really had no purpose
she
in that
leaves the
book
first
at all.
chapter.
Nothing to do. Nothing to do the
And
entire
like it
book.
kind of sounds like maybe it's gonna come up like she's gone for some nefarious
Yeah.
purpose or
Yeah.
something interesting, but there's nothing interesting.
It's like, yeah, he just went back in, like, added her in the first chapter, flipped 20 pages.
Yeah,
was
brought her
like,
back
"I
in the
talked
last
to your
chapter."
Mom. She's fine.
she's completely pointless.
Yeah.
So that's my theory for that. And if you ever
Yeah.
become Facebook friends with him, Jonathan, I want you to ask him if that
I
was like a thing.
absolutely will ask him. My goal.
And I think he'll be like, well, Jonathan, that's a good question.
My goal is to get him on the podcast. Right? I know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I can
Now
dream.
he's going to listen to it and be like, I guess I'll check out this podcasting.
Yeah, R.L. Stein, come hang out in
This
our
is so
apartment.
terrible.
R.L.
You have to
Stein.
dodge a few dead mice to get to the door.
Yeah, he'll love it.
Yeah.
He'll write a
He has
book
a skeleton
about
in
it.
his
Oh my
bathtub,
God.
Becca.
He has a skeleton in his bathtub.
What?
That was his
In
ALS
his
ice
bathtub?
bucket.
In his
yeah.
bathtub.
Oh, I didn't watch it.
He
He'll-
dumped the ice
hated
on the
that
skeleton
He'll
instead of
bring
himself.
more dead mice.
Ew, I
He
don't
can't
want
get
more.
he can't get enough of them. R.L. Stein, I want you on our podcast. We will give you beer,
Yeah.
and
I'll bake something.
my wife will bake something for you.
Yeah.
What kind of food do you like? I make good burgers. I'll show you the time of your life
In Baltimore.
in Baltimore. I'll fly you out. I don't have that money. R.L. Stein, you have Goosebumps money. You can fly yourself.
Yeah, it's being made into a movie. So,
Yeah. You're very, very relevant these days.